Greetings, people of the interwebs. Jake here once again, and so Netflix just released its first look at The Witcher Season 4. And honestly, there's really not a whole lot to say. It's basically just Liam Hemsworth, who's been recast as Geralt after Henry Cavill left. It's basically just him walking through what looks like a misty, creepy forest. Then we get a shot of him turning around. I mean, he looks fine as The Witcher, but I guess what I find odd is they not only renewed The Witcher for season 4, but they also renewed it for season 5, which 5 is going to be the last one, and they're filming them back to back. So I thought that was odd, especially because I figured like season 4 they would go ahead and do that anyways, because they did announce that Liam Hemsworth was taking over the role once Henry Cavill stepped down. But I found it odd that they went ahead and renewed it for season 4, just because, if I'm not mistaken, the viewership has gradually declined, from season 1, season 2, season 3, and also just the critics and fan reviews as well have also consistently gone down. Because, I liked the first season well enough. I thought it was fairly close to the first book, which is really just, actually the first 2 books are really just a collection of short stories that Andrzej Sapkowski wrote with Geralt. Kind of just like a Monster of the Week type of deal. Up until Blood of Elves, I believe is the first actual book. Yeah, Blood of Elves is the first book, I guess, that has a main story that kind of kicks off the main story of the series. But then season 2, they immediately went off the rails. The only thing that they kept from the books, at least from what I recall of the season and the books, which has been a while since I've watched and read both, but if I'm not mistaken, the only thing that they kept from the books was Geralt taking Ciri to Kaer Morhen to kind of train with the Witchers. That's about it. The rest of season 2 was just Netflix doing their own thing. And I remember at the time, I liked season 2 well enough, but that was before I'd read the books. But then when I started to read the books, and then realized just how much they just kind of veered off from the source material, that's when I've kind of looked back at season 2 less fondly. And then season 3 I didn't really care for at all, because even though they tried to get back on track with the storyline from the actual storyline from the books, they just kind of changed so much to where it felt like they were going out of their way to get on track with the story. And then the big battle scene, I don't think it was the last episode, maybe the second to last episode, at Aretuza with like the different sorcerers fighting Nilfgaard and some of their sorcerers. That battle to me just had no real stakes. Because I feel like the show didn't really do a very good job of explaining, or of really establishing who some of the different sorcerers were, and I don't know, I guess like the conflict between them and Nilfgaard. I also didn't think the show did a good job, even in season 1, of kind of establishing the different like kingdoms, some of their motives. Because in the books, like, it does kind of talk a little bit about all the different kingdoms, some of their in the political intrigue and stuff like that. And some of them there is like some overlapping like interests. Others, they overlap to a point, but obviously with any kind of medieval politics, there's a little bit of backstabbing and, all that going on. But I just think that, like, overall the aesthetics, like, whenever they're in different cities or different kingdoms, they all kind of look the same. And I think that was, and admittedly, that's kind of nitpicking, but I just feel like Game of Thrones, I think, did a really good job of really showcasing like the different kingdoms, and like all of them had like different kinds of architecture or different landscapes. So that way, even though us, the audience, even if you hadn't read the books, just visually you could tell, okay, we're in the north right now, just based on like the scenery, the geography, and stuff like that, and again a little bit too of the architecture. And same thing with, like, Lord of the Rings did a really good job of that as well. And even Rings of Power, which I didn't care for. But Rings of Power, at least, I thought did an okay job with really visually making every place look different from the others. That way, they didn't really need, um, well, I don't know. I guess like having at least like the initial title card of letting audiences know when they were in Eregion compared to Numenor, because yeah, the average person who's never read the books probably would not be able to tell where they're at. But nonetheless, I still think that even Rings of Power, which is not a great show, when Rings of Power did something right, I don't know. I feel like that's something that Netflix could maybe improve on in season 4 and 5. But I do feel really bad for Liam Hemsworth just because he's got some big shoes to fill, and again, with just how unpopular the last season was in particular, people are just going to go into season 4 and 5 just ready to hate him as Geralt, which is unfair, because even though from what I've seen of Liam Hemsworth, I don't think he's a very good actor. He could have improved. It's been a while since I've seen him in anything. So for all I know, he's a really good actor now. But I just think, regardless, a lot of people are just going to unfairly judge him just because, he's taking over for Henry Cavill, but he's just an actor. He's taking a job. So I don't fault him. I kind of fault Netflix for poorly managing the Witcher franchise, and Henry Cavill was a huge fan of, like, the books, the video games, and that was one of the reasons from what some of the reports that was going on that I heard is Henry Cavill is kind of clashing with like some of the writers and producers because him being the big fan kept being like, hey, no, that's actually not what's in the books. That's like going against the canon. It's going against the lore. And I kind of am willing to believe that just because when Netflix released The Witcher Blood Origin, which was just god-awful, only 4 episodes. Atrocious. But I feel like that was Netflix, that was their vision of like what they want to do with The Witcher. Because season 2 and 3 definitely felt like they wanted to kind of tell the story of The Witcher, but they're just like, man, if only we could tell the story without that pesky Witcher being involved. Which blows my mind, because, it's called The Witcher for a reason. And even though there was a little bit of, I guess some people didn't like the fact that like they were really focusing a whole lot on Ciri. That didn't bother me as much because in the books it is basically like Geralt and Ciri are the 2 leads. Yennefer's definitely important too, but they definitely did kind of like do maybe a little bit more with her than what was necessary. And then all these other like side plots and side storylines and characters and stuff like that really didn't need the extra attention compared to like other characters. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a bold strategy for Netflix to go ahead and do these last 2 seasons, and because I am curious to see what the viewership will be like. Because Henry Cavill was definitely one of the bigger draws to The Witcher with that first season. So a lot of people had never heard of the books. I'd say more people were aware of the video games than that it was a book franchise or book series. So that's, but even still, like your average person maybe was aware that it was a video game series. Probably even less aware that it's a book series. But Henry Cavill is definitely the big draw to this show. So now that he's stepped down, which, hey, hats off to him. It looked like it was a sinking ship anyways, so I don't blame him for that. But I'm curious, though, to see what the viewership will be like for season 4 and 5. Because, I don't know, like, maybe there will be enough people who are curious enough to watch season 4, at least the first few episodes, to see how good it is or how bad it is. I'm kind of leaning a little bit towards bad, just based off season 2 and 3. And again, just how much they changed the books, even though I'm pretty sure the showrunner said that she didn't have any intentions, or before the show came out, didn't have any intentions of like deviating from the source material. But whatever. That's kind of typical of studios and producers to say, we're going to do a faithful adaptation, and then not do that at all. So So I don't know, and I'm kind of debating myself if I'll even bother watching season 4, because season 3 to me was a slog to get through. Even though I will say there were some decent action sequences, especially I think it was the last episode when Henry Cavill, as Geralt, kind of had like his last battle sequence. Like that was a pretty cool battle. But then there was just a lot of, I don't know, like felt like filler, just kind of hollow moments. Like again, the battle in Aretuza with like all the different sorcerers. Like a lot of characters died, and it's kind of like, I don't care. Like there just wasn't enough development for them. Even for like these kind of more side characters and supporting characters, where you don't have to delve too deep into like their motivations, their backstories and stuff like that. I still think if you're just gonna have like this big massacre, give them a little bit more. Because again, even Game of Thrones, both the books and the shows did a fairly good job of like whenever they killed off even the lesser characters, you'd still kind of felt something for them, whether you were excited because they died or maybe a little bummed. So I don't know. I just thought like season 3 was a bit of a slog to get through, and so I don't look forward to watching season 4, but I might give it a go just to be fair. Give it and have an open mind that maybe, just maybe, they learn from their mistakes of season 2 and 3, and they are actually going to try and be faithful to the books. I feel like that's wishful thinking on my part, but hey, I try to be optimistic and look at the bright side of things. I don't know. Those are my very rambly thoughts on that teaser that I actually gave very little opinions on that first look teaser and more just rambled about Witcher. But that's kind of my style. So let me know your thoughts below. Are you excited? Are you going in hating this show? I don't know. I'm curious to hear thoughts. Do the usual YouTube-y stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Give me your firstborn child for sacrifice. The typical stuff. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and until next time, everyone, cheers.